Hey, Thrand here, and I'm here with a fantasy Spartan Kopis. It's basically very much like a later century falchion, but it's based on the Kopis that was used by the Spartans and by the Greek hoplites. This blade is EN45 steel. It's got a great blade geometry and it has a really nice weight and heft. I think this thing will perform much like a falchion or a mezzer. In its cutting ability. I mean, it would definitely hack through limbs, arms, legs. We're going to test that out today, see how well it performs. It is fully functional. It came extremely sharp. I mean, it's razor sharp already. It's not a joke in any kind of way. It is a sharp blade. So it has no niches in it. It came very, very nice. The only thing we've tested similar to this design, because a Kopis is actually a later century version of like a falcata, which was early century, to a Kopis, and very much we believe the name might have had something to do with the Kopesh. And we tested a Kopesh. If you look at the design, you have some similarities. The actual Kopis is normally bladed all the way back, which this one isn't. This is like a ricasso here, or a protrusion forward to allow the blade to slip forward, and very much looks like a cutlass in some ways. But it's a nice broad blade like a falchion. All those type of swords throughout history, as they reoccurred, always show up as cleavers or hackers. Very much like when we tested this from Medieval Shop. This is a real Nepalese kukri. Sorry, a lot of people have wanted me to put the kukri in and not to say kukri like a lot of people say around here, or kukri. The Gorkha warrior made this famed, and no, I probably don't use it as well as they would, because it is their blade and they know more about it than anybody who used it for centuries. And now would I try to pretend that I knew that much about it. But it's a great blade. It performed very well for me. It's cut through Gambison and done all kinds of great stuff. A lot of the people in the time period, supposedly, according to Barry Jacobson, he states that the Spartans had gone during the 300 time period to a blade much like this as their utility blade, as their backup blade. They had a very sharp blade, this long. They might have been more pointed, more acute, but they were nice broad blades to hack with too. And they supposedly were famed even this small for hacking the leg off. If you look at the size of this blade, this, like I said, is very falchion-like. Like the falchion that Matt Easton had on recently. He talked about how he didn't think it was really an armor sword. He thought it was a cleaving sword. And surprisingly enough, the Kopis, which is very similar to it, and the falcata were supposed to be famed for ritually sacrificing animals and cutting them up. And then they started being used as weapons. So that kind of makes sense. I mean, it was designed to hack through flesh and bone. So that's what we've got today. We're going to do the analog ballistics gel head. I've got the artery in it and do some cutting with it and see how well it can perform. I'm thinking it'll do well. Oh. Now that is an extremely hard cut to pull off. My paper might have been a little wetter than it should have been, but that is a pretty clean cut. We're talking over 4 inches. That's at least 4 inches, if not more, which I normally do with two-handed weapons. We're talking about hand-and-a-half style swords, stuff that have much more blade length, which gives you a longer lever length, and yeah, it gives you more cranking ability and so on. From something with this kind of balance, which I notice if the blade is like a leaf-shaped blade, or a Kopis, or a Kopesh, like I've tested before, it tends to allow the blade to be heftier and still have a light blade. This blade is not extremely heavy. It doesn't feel as heavy as an axe. It's very easy to wield, and if you look at that cut, that is just amazing. One of the things I love about this blade is the beautiful belt and baldric and the attention to detail and leather work. It's awesome. As you can see, you can just pull it right out and use it from behind the shield. And that's what this was. This was a backup weapon. But somebody using a Kopis, because yes, a Spartan could have still been using a Kopis in the Battle of 300. It's very plausible. Someone even used axes, and skirmishers would probably think something like this was ideal. This is a blade that has a specific style of grip that has a lot of hand protection. This one feels exceptionally good. And you have a hook type idea at the back that's very much like the Kopesh, where it's not going to fly to your hand. When you cast it out, it's like having a Viking style sword with the T-shaped pommel on the back that I love so much. With a tight grip, it's going to hold it in your hand. It's not going to let that go anywhere. It's not going to fly out. This seems to be exceptionally well made. I want to start off with a cut that I've seen. I've seen this cut in many or I guess at least a couple of depictions. It looks like the blade's being held in this manner. You're standing this way and then thrown out, like it's being wound up and then cast out to hit the man from the cover of the shield. But it still looks like it's up above the shield and then coming out, almost like a bolognese or something. You come around and parry, come out. So maybe perhaps that's what it was. Maybe it's a parry idea and then use the full weight of the blade to cast out and use full force and cut. So let's go ahead and try hitting in this area and see what we can do. From that same pose, just going to get a feel for it. Ah! Oh, I don't believe it. I am sorry, but I was hoping to have way more head to work with. But I think that might have been something to the drawings and that technique, because although that would cover your head, like I said, it's a type of guard. You know, you're screening yourself, and then throwing a massive blow, that split our skull in twain pretty much. It's all the way down into the spine. Beautiful cut. We've lost almost all of our blood here, so we can see this. That's straight down the center and separated. As everybody talks about shields getting in the way, I really don't think it would be in the way of taking the top of the head off. Yes, perfectly clean cut. I think Matt Easton had a perfect idea. This blade wasn't necessarily armor, but against levies and unarmored people and people wearing cloth, which I'll test that later in another video against gambesons. I think this type of design, the blade geometry and the hacking ability that it has, and the sharpness, and you see how thin it is, the blade held up extremely well. It makes it brutal. This thing would take arms and legs off. I mean, I can see that now. It's clearly evident. This is done more than most blades of this type would, so I'm expecting a falchion, since this is modern E45 steel, to behave much the same way, and knowing what I know about bronze and iron weapons as I do now, because I've been studying them over the years and using different grades of steel, I think it would do pretty much the same thing. This thing would be devastating. This would cause carnage on the battlefield. It would put fear in the enemy if you were to use this as your backup. And I'm extremely impressed. What do you say now? Artery?
Yeah.
Cut one of the arteries now. We've got arteries in the neck here, and from that first impact, they've kind of bulged out. Because remember, there's just a thin amount of gel over it, and gel tends to split instead of bruising. So instead of damaging the neck from impact and stuff, we have our arteries sticking out of it. These arteries are not easy to cut. They're a clear PVC style piping, like tubing. That's the best I can get. That's exactly what Mythbusters used when they did their artery. So what we're going to do now is, that's where I've got the idea. One of our viewers suggested this years ago, and we put it in there. I'm going to try just cutting an artery without taking the head off. Because if I take the head off, then I might as well just decap. We'll do that in a second. Let's see if we can just cut an artery and see how dangerous it is. Maybe the first I should just step in and cut forward, like just a push cut. We normally don't do anything. Let's see what happens. Oh! The artery, like I said, is extremely hard to cut. We cut into flesh, I'd say about 1 inch. The artery was scored. So obviously that artery is not going to cut that way because it's not like a human artery. So let's go ahead and try again, and this time I'm going to try this with the tip. Ah! We've gone clean through our artery. We don't have much blood left. But yes, that went all the way to the spine. I can feel the tip scratch the spine. So we easily cut our artery, no problems. All that took was a tip shot. Okay, and to end the video for proper comparison, I think I shall just go ahead and do a proper decap like we always do. Let's see how it works. Oh! I hit high, I hit the artery, and I hit the jaw. So we've got a lot of flesh there. I didn't hit low as I intended. So we've destroyed the spine, but we lost our head because obviously they're not secured in place. He's pretty much compromised.
Yeah, he's completely compromised. He doesn't even
Yeah,
have a vein.
the spine was busted, and that's what caused our lapel. This thing is old, and I need to repair it. I didn't, so it rocked and let it fall. Instead of keeping it up here, we might have went clean through on the way to the head hole. So I pretty much think that's the end of our video. I think it performed extremely well. I mean, it's the end of our video on this part of the testing. but the head is a clean cut. That is a beautiful clean cut completely through. The artery was a nice cut with the tip shot. It takes a little bit more than a push cut or draw cut to cut that, even though we did cut into the gel itself. And the spine shattering, I would expect to see how high I cut up and how much gel I went through. I would actually expect it to do much more if I would have aimed a little bit lower on the neck and had a better platform. Sorry about that. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, and farewell.